Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. Here we are on a Tuesday. Didn't come to you yesterday because we were waiting on a handful of things, one of which did happen yesterday just later than our normal recording window. And then the other, the Big 12, of course, they knew it. Why couldn't they have released the men and the women on Monday? Who knows? But they decided to wait until Tuesday to release the men's Big 12 basketball schedule. But we have that today. And that's what we're going to talk about for you first. So a little bit of a two-parter today. You're getting two episodes on Tuesday. First one, we're going to talk strictly about the upcoming Big 12 basketball schedule. Look, we already knew the opponents. That doesn't change much. But as we know with schedules, like how they are stacked upon and built with one another also kind of determines how things will go. As you know, playing Arizona and Arizona State, one might be easier than the other, but is it going to be easier considering that K-State has to play at Arizona on a Wednesday, spend a handful of days out in Arizona, and then play Arizona State on that Saturday? I don't know. We shall see. Obviously, it may have wore on K-State last year where they had to play in Provo, and a few days later they had to play in Utah, a team that they had no business losing to. So that's just the way this thing works. I get some people, oh, we already knew what the schedule. You knew the opponents, but now we know the dates that they're going to be played, and Drew has thoughts on it. Also, this impacts the fans more than who the opponents are. Is going to be, because this is telling you what days you can be in Manhattan to watch games, or when you can schedule road trips. Like, this is important stuff right here. Don't downplay the schedule release day.
No, I think that schedule release day is always fun. It does take a little bit of the wind out of the sails when, we already knew the opponents. And this is like my bigger overarching take about schedule release day. If you're going to hype this up, you probably shouldn't release who the opponents are that everybody's going to play, because that kind of already kind of takes the wind out of it. And then, you did this for the women yesterday, you do it for the men today. Why are you even releasing a schedule if you don't have time or TV yet?
Yeah, and I don't remember this being a thing until recently, maybe even this year, because normally you got them and it was like, oh, here's also the TV designations and the times with it, because that is in some ways, for these Saturday games, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to be like, oh, they're playing that day, but we don't know if they're going to tip off at 11 a.m. or 8 p.m.
Or if you're like planning on like wanting to go to a road game, it does you no good to not know what time the game is. Like there is a lot of things like that just with how basketball works scheduling wise that like bothers me. This will be like when the TV designations and times come out, it will be the fourth different K-State basketball schedule release that we've had. And you can do this so much more efficiently. I get that because the Big 12 said yes to literally everybody that would put them on TV, that you're going to have like some issues with this. But don't say we're releasing the schedules if we're just putting days on them. The days don't do a whole lot for me. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you knew that it was going to be a midweek and then a weekend. K-State does play a Sunday home game again, so that's fun, I guess. But like I don't know. Maybe I'm just the old cranky person, but like it really bothers me that they really milk this out to having like 5 different schedule releases from the Big 12 offices.
Well, hey, it works, because every time it happens, I'm on pins and needles. I'm excited for it, for any drip of information. But yes, I would agree with you. This feels like something that could be much more streamlined, but it is not. So
the season starts in like 43 days, and we barely have time or TV for any game this season.
Well, currently the only game that we know the time and TV for is the exhibition at Missouri on Friday, October 24th.
And we know time and TV for the games in Kansas City.
Yes, that's right. We do know that.
We know the time and TV for 3 of the 30+ regular season basketball games. What are we doing?
Yeah. Well, I hope nobody has plans other than attending K-State basketball games at some point during those days. Let's get into the schedule and give it to you right here. We did get the leak from John Rothstein yesterday that K-State was going to open the season at home against BYU on January 3rd. That is a Saturday. So that was obviously correct. I would imagine John's sources were the Big 12 office. Let's look.
It says January 3rd on the Rothstein tweet and the K-State press release, but that is actually a Friday.
Oh, well, how about that?
Wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong thing. We're good. We're good.
Okay. All right. I was just going to take your word for it. So, misinformation Drew over there.
Yeah, I was looking at a calendar and I saw a 2 and didn't see a 3 and was really confused.
Hey, I've been there before, also sometimes when you're looking at the wrong month on the calendar and you're like, wait, no. Anyways, that happens more so. My wife is asking when the dog has the next grooming appointment. I'm like, next Monday, apparently. And then I would go, oh, wait, that was actually the last month. Anyways, so BYU to open things up in Big 12 play at home, January 3rd. Then one of those back-to-back road trips, the travel partner situation, Arizona State on a Wednesday and a Saturday. So K-State will start in Tucson. Imagine they stay in Arizona, and then they finish things off in Tempe on that Saturday before they return home. They get a handful of extra days off. They get the Wednesday home game against UCF, and then their easiest road trip aside from Lawrence this year comes on January 17th, a Saturday trip to Gallagher-Iba Arena to face Oklahoma State. I always think that's a good one to have on a Saturday. If you're a K-State fan, it's an easy drive for a majority of the fan base in the state. Even if you're up in Manhattan, it's not the most taxing of drives, under 4 hours that you can get that done in. Then Utah comes to Manhattan. This is one of only 2 times during conference play that K-State has back-to-back home games. They will play Utah on a Tuesday, the 20th of January, and then they are at home on that 24th, a Saturday against Kansas. Then the 27th, a Tuesday, they are on the road at West Virginia. And when they return home, the calendar will flip to February, and it will be their only Sunday game of the season. They will get to face Iowa State by their lonesome to complete the first half of their Big 12 schedule. It should be noted here that that is the only non-traditional Big 12 day that K-State will play this year. Some teams do have Thursday and Friday games on their schedule as well as Sunday. K-State just has that one Sunday game with Iowa State. So the first half of the Big 12 schedule, Drew, what do you make of it?
Honestly, you want to start off hot because, like, I'm looking at this. BYU is going to be really, really good this year. At least we think. But you do get that at home. Maybe you can squeak it out. You're probably losing at Arizona. Like that just feels like a game that K-State probably loses. But then, look at those next 4. That's a stretch where you probably want to go, if you're going to the NCAA tournament, 3-1 at a minimum. Like at Arizona State.
I think unless Utah has gotten it flipped around, that's a 4-0 stretch that needs to happen because there's a better chance you're 0-2 than 1-1 or 2-0 after those first 2 games. I think if you want to try to lock yourself in, I think that's got to be a 4-0 stretch.
Yeah, it's got to be 3-1, 4-0. Like you can't be doing what we've seen in the last 4 years of K-State basketball where you're winning at home, you're losing the games on the road. Like that needs to be a stretch where you can go 4-0 potentially, or like I said, at worst 3-1. Like if you beat BYU, especially, like you can afford to go 3-1 in that stretch. But yeah, if you start hot, that's probably what you'd want because KU at home, K-State still has won all the home games at home or in Manhattan against KU. So you hope that you can get that one. West Virginia, I honestly have no idea what they're going to be this year. I don't know if anybody really knows yet. So we kind of wait and see there. And then Iowa State at home is another game that if you're a tournament team, you probably got to get. So this the first half of the schedule, I think is like a mixed bag of games that, you can't really afford to lose. But then on the flip side is games that, like, if you're a tournament team, you should probably beat this team. Like, I know that Iowa State, again, is going to be really good, but part of playing in the Big 12 is you don't get a night off when you go on the road. So you better protect home court. So,
Well,
like, against KU and Iowa State and BYU, you probably got to win at least 2 of those.
it's in the song, Drew. He don't take no nights off. So of course we all know that. I think might be a little strict of you to say that they need to take care of that Iowa State home game. I think that will be a tricky one.
Well,
I just think to
okay. So,
generalize it, I think if you just say this team needs to probably be 6-3 through the first half of the Big 12 season, given what you have there, where
yeah.
if you go 6-3, you've won all of the games that you should win in that stretch, or have, I would say, a better chance than your opponent to win. And then going off of that, I think you could say, okay, if you drop a nasty one, say it's to Arizona State or it's to Oklahoma State or West Virginia, then you're probably also hoping that you've backed it up by getting one of those home games or two of them in a big way against BYU, Kansas, or Iowa State. And I would honestly think at this point of the game, you just kind of have to assume that Jerome Tang's going to get his team up and ready to beat Kansas at home. Like, it's happened the first 3 years. Only one of those teams ended up being a good basketball team. They found a way to do it all 3 times. So I think, like, Jerome Tang, the one thing that he has certainly done since getting here is making that like an expectation where that they're always going to be competitive in that game. And the last 3 years they've had the edge when they've gotten Kansas in Manhattan. But we'll
I,
see.
I'll give you maybe being a little too strict about the Iowa State game, but also with how the non-conference schedule really works out. If K-State were to lose a game in the Kansas City tournament, or if they were to
Yeah,
lose to Indiana and Creighton both, like, you probably need to beat Iowa State because you at that point you
you're going to
probably
run out of
haven't beat
chances for
anybody.
good wins. Yeah, that's
So
true.
at that point, like, you'd probably need to beat Iowa State, KU, or BYU and have like probably 2 of the 3.
And that is because on the back end of the schedule, it's, I think, a pretty black and white look at games that you have to win and games that you probably have no chance of winning. TCU, given what they are, what they probably will have, is a little bit more of a toss-up one when you go on the road, but we know it's not a tough place to play, whatever. Wes Miller, fraud. Jerome Tang owns him, so that's a win. Chalk it up for K-State. You're not winning at Houston. You can handle Baylor at home, and I mean, there's a real possibility that K-State's better than Baylor this year. You think K-State had it bad? Baylor had to reset every single player on their roster. You get them at home. We know Jerome Tang's had good history against Scott Drew, and then Texas Tech on the road. Good luck with what they've built up, winning in United Supermarkets Arena. Colorado probably destined to be terrible again. You need to win that one, even though Wednesday trip in the altitude, that'll probably be an 8 or 9 o'clock, probably a 9 o'clock start time in Central. And then you need to beat TCU and West Virginia at home, and then zero chance of winning that final game of the regular season if you're K-State. Second time in 3 years that K-State will have to go to Lawrence on senior day.
Yeah, and that's why when I look at the first half, it's where you got to beat the teams that are good that you're getting at home, because the schedule gets a lot tougher, I think, in the back half. That stretch of 3 where K-State plays at Houston, home against Baylor, at Tech, that is probably, it's not quite the hardest, but it's maybe the hardest they can have without playing Iowa State or in Lawrence. Like that's a stretch where we're going to learn a lot about where the team is, especially if they are kind of like that 6-3 to begin Big 12 play. And you kind of feel like, oh, they're kind of bubbly right now. Maybe need to win some big games down the stretch. So that's the group of 3 that I look at. Got to beat TCU at home. I am sick of K-State basketball losing to TCU, home or away.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Win a game against Jamie Dixon, please. And then West Virginia and Colorado both probably going to be pretty bad. So again, when we talked about this when the opponents came out that K-State was playing twice. Like West Virginia, with what they have, might need to be a sweep. Just based on they aren't great. K-State should be better than them. Probably got to win both, maybe. And you really can just only lose one. That can't be a game that you get swept, or a series that gets swept by. KU at home or on the road. Until it happens again in my lifetime, I'm just gonna chalk that up as a loss every time.
Well, the trick is we need to get Fan back in the building, because the only time he ever went was the 2006 game that K-State won. So we may just have to drag him to Lawrence that day. He probably won't look forward to it, but we're going to make it happen for the good of K-State society.
And then I didn't even mention them, but Cincinnati's kicking dudes off like 2 months before the season starts, so they're probably going to be pretty bad.
Is it better to kick a guy off the team 2 months before the season starts, or a month after the season has started?
I feel like it's about the same. If you have to kick a dude off the team right before the season, or like the season is like already begun, you're probably destined to be pretty terrible.
All right, interesting. Yeah, we'll see. If I'm saying 6-3 in the first half, I think you need 5-4 in the second half. And if you do that, I mean 11-7 in this league, as long as you don't royally screw up non-conference play, that's going to get you into the NCAA tournament, especially with the teams that K-State's going to face. And because you would imagine in doing that, you're going to find, a handful of good wins in there. Because here's what I'll prepare you for. There will be stupid losses. Even the good K-State teams in a sport like basketball suffer some stupid losses. But they're also going to have some highly impactful wins. Could it be Kansas? Could it be Iowa State? Could it be Baylor if they're trending in the right direction?
Could it be Lawrence?
No, it cannot be that one. But any of the others are on the table. Like Jerome Tang has gone and faced good Texas Tech teams tough in Lubbock. And again, Houston, not happening. See you later, not happening. That brand of basketball with that talent just is not going to be something many teams can overcome. Texas Tech had to get into a literal fight with Houston last year and get dudes ejected to show that they could take down Houston. And that was the only real blemish that the Cougars suffered in Big 12 play.
The only 2 games that I see like for sure losses are at Houston and at KU, but everything else,
which is good considering where this team and program felt like it was when the season ended last year in Kansas City.
And I think that's kind of the added advantage of like what we think K-State has brought in, what we keep hearing about them, and then also just kind of the benefit too of who K-State gets twice and where they get certain teams. Like if they played BYU on the road, I'd say no chance. But now you get BYU at home. It's the first game of conference play. I know the students won't be back yet for that, but I can still see Bramlage being pretty juiced up to see AJ DeBonza, who almost went to K-State. So I would imagine that it'll be pretty juiced up. And K-State ran BYU out of the gym the only time that BYU has came to Manhattan so far. Then like I said, West Virginia, you get them twice. We think they're probably going to be near the bottom of the league. So you kind of move on from that. And then you get Iowa State, Justin Bramlage. You don't have to go to Ames. So again, it lines up pretty well to where if you play good basketball in that first half of the schedule, you're set up for making the NCAA tournament and making it pretty comfortable. If you're 5-4 in that first half, I think that's where we kind of see this team as a bubble team.
Yeah, if they go 5-4 or worse in the first half, you're going to be sweating out the next 9 games.
If they go worse than 5-4 in the first half of Big 12 play, they're not making the tournament.
Yeah, it's probably done, because the big wins that you would need are all on the road to finish out. Like you're not going to get Kansas at home like last year. You're not going to get Arizona at home like last year, where you can kind of draw it back in. Like you've got games that you have to win at home or that you can't lose at home. And then you've got a bunch of road games that, like, given the circumstances and who you're playing, there's probably a very slim to zero chance that you
because
can get it done.
if you also go worse than 5-4 that first half, my guess would be that you probably have lost to both Creighton and Indiana on the road, and you're kind of running out of opportunities.
Yeah, and that's where we can talk about that too, where you kind of have to evaluate what the totality of the schedule is, and realize that when you get into this, like we know with how things are shaping up, K-State can't lose to UNCG, they can't lose to Cal, they can't lose to Bellarmine, they can't lose to Tulsa. You need to go 1-1 at worst in Kansas City.
Can't
You
lose
need
all.
You can't lose to Seton Hall. You got to beat Bowling Green, Mississippi Valley State, obviously, South Dakota, UL Monroe, and then you're hoping that's 10 wins right there in the non-con. You have two other games that you need to account for with Indiana and Creighton, and you'll see like those are going to be not the easiest of games, but certainly teams that aren't invincible. But if you're 10-3 coming out of the non-con and you end up 11-7, 21-10 is good enough to get you into the NCAA tournament in this league with that league record,
and very comfortably
Yeah.
in the tournament.
It's
Again, that means that you probably had some big wins to go with some of the losses.
It's if there's some other, like if you don't win a game in Kansas City, so say you lose to Mississippi State and New Mexico or Nebraska. Okay, so now you're talking 9-4, and you lose another weird, silly one in there or something. Now you're like 8-5 is going to put you in a bad spot. I don't think that's possible with the schedule that's in front of them and with the team they have this year. But we obviously have known that you can't take things for granted with K-State basketball the last couple of seasons. So we'll see. This team is what they've done, and like you said, Drew, the way they put things together, it makes you feel better about what they could do. They've grown and they've done a good job of replacing some things, but we know that there's also still some blind spots on this roster, and we're going to have to see how it all comes together and what they look like. And the schedule, at least, it's balanced. I would say I would point that out. So I think that's good for this team. You don't have a stretch that you look at it and go, like, that's inherently really, really tough. Probably the toughest stretches that they will face are the first 3 games of conference play because of the circumstances. BYU will be a good team. At Arizona, that'll be a great team. And then you stay out there and you have to play at Arizona State. So you have that long extended road trip. And then the other stretch you would say starting with the road trip to Houston, you come back to face Baylor, then you're back out to Texas to play Texas Tech, and then you finish off that swing with an altitude game at Colorado. That's probably those 7 games. Those are the toughest pockets of your season that you're about to face. Outside, like Kansas and Iowa State in 2 of your 3 games is not easy by any means, with a West Virginia road trip tossed in the middle of it, but it's spread out enough from the other games around it, and having those 2 at home, I think, is beneficial. But you can see, when a majority of those stretches of games come on the road, and good teams are involved, it's going to make it tough on you. But I don't think this is an overwhelmingly unfair schedule for K-State. And I'm sure I could look around at other teams in the league and go, boy, you got kind of the shaft with what's going on here. I mean, I think a team like Kansas a year or 2 ago when that schedule came out, I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, like that's a tough outcome for them. Not that we ever feel bad for them. I'm just, comparing what the Big 12 has done for other teams. I know that Iowa State, for example, has a stretch in their schedule this year. They'll play, this is 6 games from the middle of February to the start of March. They play Kansas and Houston in a 3-day stretch in Ames. So they play Saturday against KU, big Monday against Houston. Then they do the Utah twofer at BYU, at Utah. Then they come back to face Texas Tech, and then they're out to Tucson, where they lost a season ago. So, like, that's not an easy stretch right there. K-State doesn't have a 6-game stretch that looks that bad this year, and you got to take that for granted, and you got to be able to make up for it by getting some big wins and not dropping the ones you're supposed to win on your schedule.
Yeah, and even like looking at KU's schedule, they have a back-to-back where they play at home against Houston and then at Arizona. So like that's also not great when you look at other team schedules. I was also like fascinated by this because you see Utah coming to Manhattan, and I knew that Utah eventually had to go to Lawrence. Did you realize that Utah comes to Manhattan? I think it's January 20th, but then comes back to go to Lawrence on February 7th.
Mm.
Like they didn't give them the game like the 17th at KU, so I thought that was a little bit fascinating. But yeah, this schedule is not like super daunting. The Big 12 is very tough. We know this, but with what K-State has and where they're getting certain teams, I think that's kind of more important than anything else. Like you're telling me that K-State only has to play BYU once and it's at home. Nice. You only have to play
Iowa State once.
once and it's at home. Nice. You're probably going to lose to Houston anywhere that you play them. So I'd rather play them just on the road and get it over with.
Well, because like think about this, like the outlook for the schedule automatically changes if instead of West Virginia or TCU twice, you get Houston twice. Well, okay, we're dropping you to 10-8 right there.
Or
you get what you asked for, and it's you get Iowa State twice, like people would have expected instead of the other one. Well, now you're 9-9, or like it can drastically change based on who you play, and you have an advantageous schedule in front of you. Nothing's going to be easy in the Big 12, but some have it worse than others. And K-State came out of it looking, I think, pretty good in terms of their opponents, and now also the way that we know that the schedule of games are going to fall.
It is gross, and I'm already dreading playing TCU twice in the back half of the schedule. Those games have always been nasty, and somehow TCU ends up winning them.
Yeah, that's and they just win them in the dumbest and like cheap ways possible. Get the TCU stuff out of here. Let's see them correct the course this year on that. A couple of other notes on the basketball schedule, just generic type of things. We mentioned the 2 Sunflower Showdown dates. With that long layoff, this is one of the longer disparities between when K-State and KU played each other in the course of a season since honestly getting close to probably 2008 when K-State the second or third conference game of the year was when Beasley and them broke the streak, and then they didn't return to Lawrence until later in the year in March. As we know, Iowa State's the only Sunday game of the year. K-State got lucky that they only have to play one non-traditional day that K-State and Big 12 fans have become accustomed to. The long trip to Arizona, the back-to-back only happens twice at home this year. And then the trip to Colorado will be the first time K-State goes to the CU Events Center since February 12th of 2011, when Colorado was originally in the Big 12 playing their final season in the league. Anything else on the basketball schedule from the Big 12 that you like or dislike, Drew?
I'm excited. We're getting closer to basketball season. You and I always have like the basketball itch, no matter how football is doing, like this time of the year anyway. So excited about it. We're getting very, very close to the start of the season. I'm just very intrigued to see what the TV partners think of some of these K-State games. Like, is that Iowa State game going to be like a CBS Sunday game?
That's a good question. Big Ten likes to try to own Sundays, but yeah, that's out there. It's a possibility. As we know, K-State was one of the premier brands in the Big 12 last year. One of only, I think, 3 or 4 teams that got to play 2 games on CBS. They played KU and Iowa State on the eyeball network or whatever they like to call themselves there. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. A lot of variables for TV partners this year. And the good news is probably not many games that are going to be late tips if you're a K-State fan.
That's true.
Arizona will be that one feels like that'll probably be 9 or 10 o'clock at night that you're watching K-State tip off against Arizona. Arizona State, that could be an ESPN Plus one at a decent time or something.
And then Colorado, and that's it on late tips,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Let's close out, Drew. Just right now, 11-7 is the general target here. What are you calling your shot now that you know how they align for the K-State Big 12 record to be?
Seeing how it aligns, I think 11-7 is the target, and is probably going to be what they end up at. Again, you got to go 6-3 in the front half to make that possible, I think, because of what just lies ahead. But I'll go 11-7, and I do like that 21-10 overall, because the non-conference just has a bunch of games that you can't lose, and then I think that they maybe you drop a stinky one, but like win one of the games against Indiana or Creighton.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what would make you feel better about this team. I mean, probably if they do lose a not so nice one, but they're able to bounce back and win on the road at one of those spots. I think 11-7 is probably the likely outcome. But that would involve, based on that prediction, just kind of me looking and saying that they probably lose one of those games that I think you need to win, and maybe Utah or Oklahoma State ends up being a little bit better than you anticipated, but they get one of those big wins against Kansas or Iowa State, just because Jerome Tang has obviously shown a knack for it. Like, in his 3 seasons to this point, he has split the regular season series with Kansas and Iowa State all 3 years. And he hasn't always done it in the easiest of ways, as we know. 2 overtime games with Kansas, and then deciding last year to get the game against Iowa State on the road in Hilton, and did it in such an impressive way that the Juicy Wiggle never played. So I'll say 11-7, but I'm sure like it's already happening as we're getting closer to it. Like, my expectations are rising for this team. Maybe it's because football is failing so poorly right now, and so you're trying to find something good. But I like the direction and the mindset of a lot of things with this team, and I can see it unfolding in a positive way for them. But we'll talk about that in the second episode that we have for you today on the KSO show. But that will close things up for the first part. When we come back, we will talk about Jerome Tang and Chris Kleiman. Both spoke to the media on Monday and kind of gave a little bit of a look into their programs. And I wrote about it on Monday, but I think that they are in 2 totally different places right now, and it's basically a role reversal from where they would have been at this time last season. So we'll discuss Jerome Tang, Chris Kleiman, and the state of their programs when we come back with part 2 of the KSO show on this Tuesday.